You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Engage.
78 years have passed since the days of the original USS Enterprise. Now a new Galaxy starship has been designed.
Hailing frequencies open. Welcome to Galaxy Class, a Star Trek The Next Generation podcast on BQN. I'm holophotographer Stefan.
And I'm Ambassador Steven.
Hello, Ambassador Steven. How are you?
Hello, holophotographer Stefan.
I know it's a lot of syllables.
It's a
I
mouthful.
question my choice of names every day.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm tired. I have homework, but I'm alive and I'm here and I'm excited to do something I actually want to do. And that's be a geek.
You know, as I talk to folks about us bringing this back, I realize how much of a geek I am about Star Trek. and fully embrace it. Fully embrace it.
Yeah, it's not an offensive term. It's a compliment where I come from.
Agreed.
So I've got a sort of related issue to talking to other people about us doing this, in that we were going to discuss some lesser known episodes, and we can discuss this more later, but I was not really sure what a lesser known episode was, because in my little world, everybody likes Star Trek and everybody knows so many episodes. I'm like, I don't know which ones are not known as much or unpopular or obscure. So we'll talk about the episode selection later, but I struggled a bit with that.
You know, when I think about lesser known episodes, my take on it, 'cause I don't know that there really is a strict answer on that. I think that I guess I come from the other perspective of there are many episodes that we talk about a lot in terms of rewatching, in terms of chatting with actors at conventions or what have you. So I guess if it's not one of those, it probably falls into the category of lesser discussed episodes. And really, we're making this up, so I think it's whatever we decide.
Yeah, let's just roll along with whatever we want. Well, I'm glad you're doing well. I'm here, and why don't we head into our subject matter for our show?
This is the captain. Senior officers will report to my ready room immediately.
Lesser known or lesser discussed episodes. Today, listeners, we are going with Next Generation Season 5, Episode 9, A Matter of Time. I'll start doing a recap here in a sec. I decided that I would think about this episode, which I haven't seen in years probably, and try to just write down what I remember.
I'm curious to see how that exercise worked out for you.
It wasn't much, let me tell you. There were 3 things I wrote down. Number 1, I remembered the main guest character's name, Berlinghoff Rasmussen. Why I remembered his name, I'm not sure, but it kind of just stuck in my head, I guess.
It's a pretty unique name.
Did you remember the actor's name or anything?
Oh God, no. In fact,
I didn't either.
Actually, I thought I did, and then I saw the opening credits and realized I was way off. Completely different actor.
Okay, I had to look it up, and when I saw his name, Matt Frewer, I was like, yes, I know that name. So, along with remembering the character's name was Berlinghoff Rasmussen, I also remembered that I knew his voice from a cartoon that he was in. There was, in the mid or early 90s, a Pink Panther cartoon, and he did the voice of Pink Panther. Did you know this, Steven?
Oh, I didn't know. I knew his voice was familiar. I couldn't place it.
Maybe you watched this cartoon, or maybe you know it from somewhere else, but that's kind of the main place that I knew his voice from.
It's interesting.
In pop culture, I know that he was the Max Headroom character, who I'm not super familiar with, but I'm sort of aware of that character's existence, and I know he played him. I don't know if he had a show or if he was like on TV commercials, but I could be wrong about this, but I think that was like Matt Frewer's like main claim to fame. Is that character familiar to you at all, Steven?
I recall the name, and when you say that name, I see him. I see Max Headroom, but I don't have the
Yeah.
context. I'm not sure where that fits, where that face
Yeah.
fits.
Yeah, kind of the same for me too. I can think about what he looks like, and I can see like the like zigzaggy like lines behind him, and I don't know what he was for or what he did. And I think there was some sort of play on him in one of the Back to the Future movies.
Interesting.
Anyway, not important. But that's my familiarity with this actor, which isn't much. Second thing that I remembered was the design of the ship in this show. There's a ship from the future, and I remember watching it. Like, I remember seeing this episode for the first time years ago and thinking, okay, so the ship is actually from the future in this show. And that's the design. Okay, that's interesting. It's like kind of clean and white, and it's got these weird jagged edges. I thought the design was cool, I guess.
That tracks.
Yeah, and then I also remember the main computer was able to deactivate the phaser at the end of this episode when they opened the door, and all the other equipment too, I guess. Why I remember that, I don't know, but those are kind of the main points that I pulled out of my brain prior to rewatching the episode.
That's really interesting. I think I appreciate the take of trying to recall before rewatching.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what the mission was. I couldn't remember much more than this guy comes on the Enterprise and causes some trouble. With that, mischief managed. With that, why don't I go ahead and recap the episode for anyone that hasn't seen it in a while. On their way to Panthara 4 to help resolve a climate disaster, the Enterprise crew encounters a temporal distortion. From that distortion emerges a ship and a human professor by the name of Berlinghoff Rasmussen, who beams himself onto the bridge after Captain weirdly has to step aside. Rasmussen geeks out over Picard's original Enterprise D painting, the placement of a book, and the size of the ready room. Captain Picard is skeptical of Rasmussen's claims about being from the future and holds a meeting in the observation lounge with the senior staff. Worf is definitely reluctant to believe the professor. He also makes it clear that he is not super into paperwork as the crew chats about Rasmussen and the questionnaires he wants them all to fill out. Later, Rasmussen pokes at Data's face in the turbolift on his way to his guest quarters, where he proceeds to not answer any of Data's questions about the future. The Enterprise arrives at Panthara 4, where they make plans to initiate a greenhouse effect in order to warm the planet, which is rapidly approaching a kind of nuclear winter due to something science. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to that part. In 10 Forward, Worf grumbles more about the questionnaires along with Dr. Crusher and Commander Riker. Rasmussen kind of rudely intrudes on their vent session. Riker expresses suspicion over the smart ring the alleged professor keeps checking on his hand. Rasmussen then gives them their surveys and heads to main engineering, where he interrupts Data and Geordi, who are workshopping solutions to Panthara 4's Winter Wonderland woes. Rasmussen pockets an engineering pad before Geordi beams down to the planet to coordinate drilling phaser fire into it. The Enterprise pew-pews phasers at the planet, and Panthara 4's temperature begins to increase as Rasmussen looks on, making himself at home in Riker's chair on the bridge. In sickbay, Troy tells Dr. Crusher that Rasmussen's intentions may not be entirely ethical. Rasmussen, of course, walks in and asks Dr. Crusher for a look at a piece of equipment as Troy takes off to save her sanity. Crusher dodges Rasmussen's icky attempts to flirt with her, and he eventually just leaves with the piece of equipment he'd asked to look at. Back on the bridge, Worf and Riker detect earthquakes and volcanic activity on the planet. Data states that they may have overestimated Panthara 4's geographical stability. Oops. Volcanoes begin spewing ash into the air, reversing any progress the Enterprise had made warming the planet. In fact, the situation becomes worse than it was before they arrived. In his quarters, Data rocks out simultaneously to 4 different classical music and opera compositions as, of course, Rasmussen walks in uninvited.
Only 4.
Only 4. He had a lot of cognitive processing to do while he was working on this planet. Rasmussen asks Data for information and schematics on Dr. Soong's work. Data then answers a call from Geordi while Rasmussen sneakily pockets a tricorder from Data's home office. Later in the ready room, Data pitches a risky plan to Captain Picard to use the Enterprise as a lightning rod to resolve Panthara 4's exacerbated climate issue. Guess who shows up? Despite the crisis being as dire as it is, Rasmussen rebuffs Picard's requests for information that would lead to saving the lives of the colonists on the planet. A disappointed Picard walks out and decides to implement Geordi and Data's risky solution. It is fortunately a success, preserving the lives of the colonists and our favorite engineer who would have died alongside them had the plan gone south. Well, with that done on the bridge, the yucky professor promptly hops out of Troy's chair, looks at his smart rings, and announces it's time for him to go. It sure is. Picard, Data, Riker, Crusher, and Worf meet Rasmussen in the shuttle bay with the intention of searching his shiny little ship for several missing items. Rasmussen states that he will only allow Data to enter the shuttle. The two do so, they shut the door behind them, and Rasmussen, in classic bad guy monologue fashion, reveals his evil plan to kidnap Data and pretend to invent the stolen equipment once he returns to his time. Thank you for that. The shuttle itself was stolen by Rasmussen. It is from the 26th century, though Rasmussen is actually from the 22nd. A very calm-headed Data objects to all of these shenanigans. When Rasmussen tries to shoot the android with a stolen Enterprise D phaser, nothing happens. Data then calmly threatens to knock the alleged professor's lights out. They exit the ship where Rasmussen finds out that the main computer deactivated the phaser and all other stolen equipment when the shuttle door was first opened. The shiny future ship automatically disappears from the shuttle bay, returning presumably to the 22nd century, stranding Rasmussen in the 24th, with some pretty irritated Enterprise D crew members who I'm just going to guess send him straight to jail. The end.
So, Stefan,
that's more or less what happened. What do you got, Steven?
I gotta tell you, I don't like this episode.
You don't like this episode. I love it.
So
I would say I'm more on the I like this episode side. So let's talk about it. You don't like this episode.
When you selected this episode, I thought, great, cool. And as I mentioned, in a previous episode, I'm not great with the titles. So especially in this sort of lesser discussed, this is perfect because I'm not going to have a clue what the episode is. So I just searched to see which season, which episode. I turned it on, and moments into it, I thought, oh no. When Worf, I detected an anomaly. Let's go back. And
is that when you knew?
I knew what it was, and I thought, no, I could already hear his voice, and my nerves were already on edge. Rasmussen's voice. So, yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to revisit an episode that I usually would skip in a rewatch.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of this episode. So I'm excited to talk about this with you.
Let's cover this real quick. Do you just dislike specifically the sound of this actor's voice? Does that rub you the wrong way, or is it the vibe of this character? Both?
Yes, and see his mannerisms, just all of the above. This
okay.
And it's not. And I want to be clear. I don't want to disparage the actor. I think the actor actually did a great job in this role. I think he played that character very well. I just
He
hate the
did.
character.
Yeah.
I think, especially with the revelation of him being an imposter and the way he treats the crew, and I'm like, you jerk!
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
dare you?
You know, Steven, on a previous episode, you and I were talking about Luoxana Troy, and I brought up Q, in that those both seem like characters that almost don't belong in the series because they come in a completely different kind of character and they just like mess with everybody, and they feel like they're just this wild, chaotic external element that do not need to obey the rules. This character, Berlinghoff Rasmussen, kind of felt to me not quite that extreme, but like one of those like entities that comes in with no regard for the rules or for the world or for the characters or any of it.
I find that take interesting because, as I mentioned before, Luoxana is maybe my favorite character from The Next Generation because she's just so erratic and joyful, and I just dislike this character so much. So for
Yeah.
you to make that comparison,
Well, I mean,
I see where you're
it's
coming from,
maybe he's
and
the other side of the coin. Like
because
Luoxana. Sorry.
the way that Q and Luoxana interfere, I find interesting, playful.
Yeah, endearing.
It works, and the way Rasmussen interferes, I want to pinch him or punch him. I don't know. I want to cause him harm in some way.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that way about Q or Luoxana. So I see the correlation, and in the way that I find them fun and or interesting plot progressors, I find him
Mhm.
just annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would say he's not as big as Luoxana. He's not as big as Q, right? They're these over the top characters, and I wouldn't say his performance is not as chaotic and larger than life as those two, but I think just in terms of him kind of coming in to like screw around with our favorite characters, he has the same level of disregard for them.
Makes sense. And again, I think that the way the actor portrays this character, I really think is spot on. I think that
Yeah.
it works well for the episode. I think it's done well. I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah. No, completely fair. You know, it kind of makes me think of, I'm going to go out of this universe for a second to the Harry Potter films and Professor Umbridge specifically, who
Yes.
portrays this school teacher who really touches on something deep inside all of us. I think from maybe like fifth grade when you were in school and you had a substitute teacher, or maybe it was your main teacher, that really was that kind of like get under your skin, overly authoritative, but sort of friendly in a fake way seeming kind of person. You only really hate that character so much because the actress that played that character absolutely nailed it. And credit
agree.
to her and her skills, right?
Couldn't agree
So
more.
I would say like, yeah, I think you probably hate Berlinghoff Rasmussen because this actor like killed it.
Agreed. Absolutely. I think that's a great take on it.
Well, I have a small list of kind of things I thought of during this episode, and unless you have more to say on your dislike of Professor Berlinghoff Rasmussen, I'm going to move on to a kind of peculiar point at the beginning of the episode.
Let's do it.
And this is when Berlinghoff Rasmussen messages the Enterprise and asks Captain Picard to move over. Picard's a little confused, and he's like, well, Worf, tell him that we have no intention of moving. And he steps away from where he was standing near the front of the bridge, and Rasmussen beams in right there. This isn't really a thing that we need to pick apart too much, but I always did kind of find that a little bit odd. Why did he have to beam in right where Picard was? Is he just trying to be annoying? Thoughts?
I think it plays perfectly into the character of, I'm pretending to be this professor who's interested in history, and I think making a grand entrance. Let me rephrase this a little bit. I think that the con man, who he actually is, portraying the professor who he wants everyone else to believe he is, does what he does so well by distracting you, by doing other things that make you think, well, what? I mean, that's a great point. Why would he do that? Why wouldn't he just beam somewhere else? Why wouldn't he just whatever? Because it starts off their interaction with confusion and being sort of thought-provoking as, well, what's going on here? So instead of the, I would say, probably typical initial reaction of, who is this person? Why are they here? What's going on? They're almost from the start thrown off by this strange action.
Right. Yeah. So being that the ship is actually from the 26th century, I sort of always thought, well, what's the limitation here? Why would he have to beam in right to that part of the ship? But you're right. It makes sense. He's probably just knocking everybody off their rockers a little bit because he's there to make a grand entrance and kind of make himself seem more important or something along those lines to mess with our crew and get what he wants. Well, moving on in the episode, I did like when Picard told Rasmussen that you can't expect me to believe that the layout of my ready room could possibly be of interest to future historians. Steven, can you guess why I liked this line?
So my thought goes to Picard, the series Picard.
That's not what I was getting at. Tell me.
Where items from his time on the Enterprise are in a museum. Right. Captain Picard Day, the big banner, different things from the crystal from his ready room desk. These things are in fact preserved for future people to see because it was important. So that's what I was thinking. Where were you at?
That's so funny. That's really interesting. I was actually at the sort of meta commentary of us fans and how we obsess over the details of these shows, right? And how we are interested in how the ready room is laid out and like, what's that book in the box in his ready room? Is it Shakespeare? I honestly don't actually remember what that book is, but I know I think it's stated at some point. But we fans we embrace the minutia and obsessive details. So I found it kind of funny. And I know this was season 5 of Next Generation. So the show was quite popular at this point. So I wasn't sure if this was like some sort of meta commentary on how externally a lot of people do obsess over the fine details of the show, or if it was just kind of a throwaway, maybe not throwaway, but just Picard's confusion about Rasmussen's obsession with the layout of his ready room.
It's great. I wouldn't have gone there, but I really like that take. Because being that far into the series, I wonder how much they're thinking about fan interaction. Because you're right, we absolutely obsess about what's what and where and what does that mean and where is that from and how did that get there.
Yeah. Were there conventions at this point? There were conventions at this point, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure.
I hope you're right. Like I don't know how we can find this out, but that I'd love to know that the writers or producers or director or whomever tweaked that line or wrote that line, thought about us as fans and said they're going to be interested in this.
Yeah. When he said that, I raised my hand and I was like, I care. We care. A lot of people care. If only you knew. If only you knew. Decades later, you would still be playing this character, and we love it. Moving on. There was an interesting moment that I actually kind of liked. Throughout Star Trek, our captains love to break the Prime Directive if it's appropriate, right? And so when talking to Rasmussen,
sometimes when it's not.
And sometimes when it's maybe not called for, that's fair. I liked that Picard did admit that on occasion he would break the Prime Directive as appropriate. Side tangent, Steven, would you say Picard is probably the most appropriate kind of captain that adheres, I guess, mostly to the Prime Directive. I feel like the other ones, Kirk probably broke it more than Picard, right?
I'd say it's a toss-up between Picard and Janeway.
Yeah.
Because in many ways,
Yeah.
she had to maintain
right
some semblance of
circumstances.
consistency being in the Delta Quadrant. If she starts breaking it there, there's no one. It's I mean, not that she did, but I think as far as consistency, Picard and Janeway are probably on par.
Yeah.
Kirk,
Well, I liked
out the window. Like
yeah.
not Kirk out the window, but Kirk
right.
and the Prime Direct out the window.
Yeah. Yeah. So I liked when Picard was talking to Rasmussen, and Picard said, "Hey, if there is some sort of temporal version of the Prime Directive that you are trying to adhere to, now would probably be an appropriate time to break it. We are trying to save the lives of all of these colonists on this planet." Rasmussen is like, "Nah, bro." And Picard's like, "All right, we're done." And he goes out and implements the risky plan, and it works. But I liked that Picard tried to appeal to Rasmussen on that level.
I agree. He related to him, right? He actually said, "This is how I operate. This is what I've done. You're saying I'm this great man, and I, this history remembers blah 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 blah. I advise you, right? Here's my take on this. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Well, it was more direct than that,
right.
but do this. This is the place." Yeah.
Did you find that the most annoying parts of this episode, Steven, were the parts where Rasmussen would make his little comments about, like, I forget what he said, but he would tell the characters, like, he would allude to, like, that he knew something special was going to happen, or that they shouldn't ask questions because they're in the right place at the right time. I can't think of what he said exactly, but those little moments where he was implying that he had this very special knowledge, I think were played so well, because I did feel this guy's a little sleazy.
Absolutely. When he was in sick bay and like the little boy was getting something fixed, and he was like, I'm paraphrasing.
Oh, God.
Take note. You're going to tell your grandkids that you were there at Panthara 4. I'm like, you shut up. like you're pulling all this out of thin air, and the character was played very well.
Yeah, I did get kind of sick of his little moments where he'd interject his excitement over events that he didn't actually know the result of.
Right.
At the very end of this episode, I believe when they go into Rasmussen's ship, there's the pile of equipment that he stole. And in there is Geordi's visor, right? Am I wrong? Like, I'm pretty sure that I saw Geordi's visor in the pile.
I did. If that was there, I didn't pick up on it.
I was going to ask if you remembered that to be the case, because was there a deleted scene where he beat up Geordi and took his visor, or was it like a backup visor that Geordi has? We didn't see the scene where he stuck that in his pocket, so I was kind of wondering if you had any thoughts on that. I was just a little bit.
Well, I would have to imagine that Geordi would have more than one device, right? So it connects to the nodes on the side of his head that were surgically installed. But I would have to imagine he'd have more than one device, because if something happens, if it's damaged beyond repair, they can't have the chief engineer just not be able to see anymore. So I'm sure, I think following this through to its logical conclusion, at some point Rasmussen was near a spare visor and took it.
I mean, he got around that ship. I feel like every freaking scene, he would just walk up in somebody's quarters or the ready room or the bridge, and you couldn't get away from him. He was everywhere.
Okay. On that note, did it not drive you crazy that they gave him such open and free access without ever really confirming anything about who he really was?
It always drives me crazy when they do that with the guest characters that they don't know. Like, why? You're just gonna let him hang around the ship. Don't they do that almost immediately after the beginning
Yes.
credits? I think they just go have a meeting, and where is he?
Exactly.
And then he's just
Exactly.
walking around, and
He
he can
just
just
shows
go
up
anywhere he
on-
wants.
Yeah. He pops on the bridge when he wants to. I mean, there are such strict guidelines over who can be on the bridge and when, and this guy just like, yeah, I'm here. Oh, well, this is where it gets good, or whatever flippant comment he makes. And I recall when I first saw the episode in recent, or I guess subsequent watchings, and then in this watching, thinking, no, they did nothing to vet him. Why
Right.
does he have access to everything? Why do they give him stuff, right? But I think this kind of ties back into the initial smoke and mirrors of the normal focus on vetting him and making sure his story was accurate was maybe put aside by the moving the captain. Captain, please move out of the way because I'm going to be in there. And this sort of, as I said, smoke and mirrors. I think I can accept that can justify why some of this happened.
Yeah.
Even though I think there still will be protocols and such for the theatrical value of it. The character was played well, and that's
Right.
exactly what you do. You confuse, you distract, and then there's a level of trust there that's
I tell you,
unjustified.
I'm with Worf throughout this whole episode. Worf wants to throw him in the brig like immediately. He doesn't want to do his stupid little surveys. He doesn't want to talk to him. He just wants him gone. And I agree. I would at least be a little bit more active in keeping him locked down to quarters until you find out more.
Right? A security escort, something.
It brings me back to something that I do take issue with in a lot of Star Trek series. Shuttles get stolen so easily. Is there not a lock on the door or like a keypad? Something?
Right. Like lock up the keys or whatever,
Now, I mean, the reality is if people didn't steal shuttles, if Rasmussen didn't have free reign of the Enterprise, we wouldn't really have this story. So we have to kind of let some silly things go. But it is sort of grating that he just wandered around wherever he wanted.
You just touched on something that I think is interesting in terms of us discussing this as fans versus folks that may watch this one time and never see it again, or just are casual Star Trek watchers, right? We enjoy this so much that we make a point to recall things, to commit things to memory. These are the things that are consistent. These are the things that are inconsistent. These are the things that we see over and over or become familiar to us. When at the end of the day, it's a television program and our writers have to move the plot along. So I appreciate and enjoy our conversations and how we try to make this make sense. But in many ways and in many episodes, the writers just have to make something work.
Right.
And but because we're so observant, because we enjoy this so much, because we're so committed to the story and the characters and the ships and the what have you, we notice these things and we discuss these things. And I know the writers have writers' guides to help them make sure they're being consistent where they need to be. But something like that, yeah, if the shuttles were harder to steal, it would destroy so many plots.
Yeah. So there's another side of me that sort of thinks in situations like this, when the answer to why does this happen or why does this keep happening, when the answer is because it's a TV show and the narrative needs to move along and they're doing 24, 26 episodes a year, some stuff's just going to happen that doesn't make sense. And that's okay. We still love it. It's just kind of a little weird sometimes.
We just notice and then we talk about it.
We just notice and we talk about it and we make all of the listeners listen to us talking about it. It's fun. So on to something else that I thought was really interesting, and maybe you can help me figure out the reasoning behind this. I thought it was a little bizarre how inquisitive Data was about the future. Do you remember that scene when Rasmussen is in his quarters and he's talking? He washes his hands and sort of rudely holds his hands up so Data can give him a towel when the towel is clearly right there on the counter. Data just reaches down and picks one up, maybe out of a drawer. I don't know. But in that scene, Data asks if Rasmussen knows if Data is going to be still online in the 26th century. He asks a couple of things. Rasmussen, of course, doesn't say anything because he doesn't actually know. I was trying to get my head around, why does Data need to know this? Certainly he has interest in his own preservation as a living being, so I suppose that's it. It just felt a little uncharacteristic because I would think Data would expect that Rasmussen's not going to tell him anything. And I wasn't sure where he was coming from. Did you have any thoughts on this, Steven?
I guess my take would be one of two things. Either the captain listened to Worf and is using Data to sort of innocuously try to get information out of him that would either confirm or deny that he's actually who he says he is. Or we see this in Data, I think, in many episodes, he's just naturally curious. And he often says things that are completely inappropriate because he doesn't have the social cues that we have being an android. So I guess the argument against that would be, as a Starfleet officer, he should understand knowing the future, et cetera, et cetera. But then, but there's the comment at the end. The reason Data can go on to the ship is because if Picard orders him to not ever discuss it, he won't. So even if he learns something, he won't ever divulge that information. But then again, if it's about himself, right? So then we get into this paradoxical, I don't know, but I would like to think that it's because the captain was being cautious and using Data, who's always a little bit socially inept, to try to parse out who this guy is he really who he says he is. I'm totally.
How do we find the answer to this?
Well, we need to find who wrote the episode and write them
and ask them at Star Trek Las Vegas if they're there.
Yes.
Just curious, but yeah, you bring up some good points. Data is naturally curious about a lot of things, and he doesn't always necessarily understand what is socially appropriate. So I appreciate that, and that ties to the Star Trek Picard series. I loved. At some point, Picard is describing Data, and he says that Data had a child's wisdom. And I really appreciated that description of him, because Data does have a curiosity about him, a sort of childlike interest in a lot of things. And I think it's a thing that people lose as they grow up, unfortunately. And Data just has kind of maintained that important element of curiosity. So I was really liked that little moment in Picard.
Yeah, good connection there. I like that.
Well, I think the episode sort of ends a little bit abruptly. I guess I don't really need an epilogue as to what they end up doing with Rasmussen. Presumably, like I said in my recap, probably went to jail. Not sure. Did you feel this episode kind of ended abruptly, or were you just ready for it to be done and ready to get out of there? Because he comes out of the shuttle and they're like, we shut down all the equipment, and he's like, oh crap, this ship goes bye-bye. and then the show's done.
So I didn't have any issue with the ending in terms of it being abrupt. I think that there wasn't much else to say. They do say that he's going to Starbase, I think it's 214, and they're turning him over to Starfleet, and Picard says something to the effect of, there are plenty of historians in the 24th century that would love to meet someone who is from your time period. So I imagine he'll be in some sort of community service / incarceration combination thing where he's expected to be helpful in terms of a history and context and such. But even that, I feel like would somehow violate some sort of, not the prime directive, but let me take come at this from another angle. The epilogue, we don't know kind of what happens to him. We don't know what happens to Jillian.
We don't.
From Star Trek 4.
She gets on a science vessel and has a cool little ID card on her shirt.
Right? See, you're on the galaxy.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we don't know what happens to her, there's no way in hell we're going to find out what happens to Rasmussen.
I wonder if there's a book.
There is.
I'm not going to read it, but there's got to be, I'm sure there's something out there, some fan fiction at the very least.
So there is a book.
I don't need to see this character again.
Yeah.
I imagine you.
Oh,
don't.
you mean about yeah. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I'm being really frank. I don't care what happens to him.
Fair enough.
I'm glad he was caught.
Fair enough. He is rotting in a prison cell on Starbase 84.
I think he's in a library somewhere. Oh gosh, a good lower decks connection. He's on Starbase 80.
Yeah, that's the one.
He's now their archivist.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like he would definitely end up there before he gets recruited by Section 31 or
oh God.
I don't know. I don't think they would want him.
Well, I don't.
He's kind of devious though, so I don't know.
He's a great. Well, great's maybe a strong word. He seems to be a rather talented con man, but there were no other discernible skills. From my perspective, there was nothing else that he was good at other than pulling the wool over people's eyes.
Right. He claimed to be a professor, but it sounds like he just found a time traveler, knocked him out, and stole his stuff.
Right.
So I don't think he's actually a professor. I don't know what he did. Maybe we don't care. It's trivia time. So, Steven, you were able to dig up some interesting trivia on this episode. Just looking at this now, I definitely didn't know the first point here. So let's dive into these little bits of info.
Absolutely. So thank you, IMDb. Academic here. Love to cite our sources. So trivia for this episode. Robin Williams, a longtime Star Trek fan, had to opt out of the role of Professor Rasmussen to play Peter Pan in Steven Spielberg's Hook.
That is wild. I would love to see Robin Williams in this episode. Great movie, by the way. If you're going to opt out of doing Star Trek, I love Hook. You like that movie, Steven?
Love it. Love it.
So good. Such a good holiday movie. Not really a holiday movie, but it feels like it. So I didn't know that. Moving on to our next trivia point. A Matter of Time won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Special Visual Effects, sharing it in a tie with Conundrum. Okay. Outstanding Individual Achievement in Special Effects.
When I think about the planetary effects and then when they use the Enterprise as a lightning rod, I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. And watching it now, it actually still looks pretty cool. Thinking about that's the technical term, pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
But I can see why in 90, this would have been 91, 92?
Thereabouts.
Math. That was probably pretty amazing special effects. And Star Trek is known for this, right? So pretty cool to see that they won an award for this.
Yeah, thinking about the effects, I did watch the remastered version, which is just the recomposited special effects. I know that they had to redo some of the special effects when they did the remastering project. So how many years has it been since I've seen the original version of this episode? Many years, and the effects were probably somewhat similar, just not as clear. I don't really know to what extent they had to redo the effects on this episode for the remastered versions. But in any case, I'm glad it won an Emmy. And now I'm trying to figure out what was Conundrum.
I have no idea.
Is
I'm
now
assuming
Conundrum
it's a movie.
is I know it's an episode.
Oh, is it?
It
Whoops.
might be the episode. There's a computer virus on the Enterprise and it blows up the Yamato. Listeners, I might be just making stuff up.
Conundrum.
When an approaching alien ship wipes their memory, the crew struggles to put back together what happened. I don't know if that's the episode I'm thinking of. Well, anyway.
So, interesting fact that just came up for me about you. So I try not to watch the remastered episodes. I try to only watch the original version of them. I remember when they released the remastered TOS episodes, I was so disappointed because the effects it took me out of it because even though the effects were excellent, it wasn't the 60s sort of like there's something I think that is magical, time appropriate of the
charming
original effects. So when I watch TNG, really any of the as we call it classic track episodes, I try to watch the original versions. So I watched the original version of this, and that's why I thought.
So are you watching the DVDs?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have those anymore. I just have the Blu-rays now. I got rid of the DVDs when I got them, but that's cool. I don't know that you can find the original ones on streaming anywhere anymore. So hang on to those DVDs.
Absolutely. Well, next fun fact, Tom Baker of Doctor Who fame was on the short list to play Rasmussen. How about that?
I have no idea who that is. I don't know Doctor Who.
Ooh. Okay, we're gonna cut that
out. I don't know what that means.
It's part of the theme song for Doctor Who, but yeah, Tom Baker was one of the doctors. I don't recall which number, but he would have been a fascinating Rasmussen, I think.
Okay, I've clicked on the link. I'm looking at his picture. He's unfamiliar to me. So if he was in other things, I don't know that I've seen him.
Yeah, I'm only aware of him through Doctor Who fame and the scarf. The scarf's a thing. It's a very long scarf.
There is somebody that cosplays at Star Trek Las Vegas as a Doctor Who with a comm badge, and I couldn't tell you which version of Doctor Who it is. I know the show's been running for many, many, many years, but my familiarity is limited to one single episode I watched from like 2005. I think I watched the debut episode of a new actor playing the Doctor. Couldn't tell you his name because a friend of mine wanted to watch it. All right, cool. I believe you because I have no idea. Other than that, I'm sort of vaguely aware that Barty Crouch Jr., the actor that played him, was a Doctor Who person. Yes, you're nodding. This is correct. Great. Am I hurting you by saying these things? I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, Doctor Who fan listeners. I am poorly educated on this subject.
David Tennant is maybe one of the most loved doctors of the remakes of Doctor Who, or not remakes, but the more recent Doctor Who actors.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I've heard that name for sure. Don't add.
So what else do we know about A Matter of Time?
Let's move on to my disappointing knowledge of Doctor Who. Picard makes an analogy about Khan Noonien Singh from Space Seed 1967 and Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. This is the only mention ever made of Khan on TNG. Interesting. I didn't know that.
I read this and thought, what analogy does he make? And I guess I just missed it. So now, of course, now I have to rewatch the episode to find this analogy. I will bear my burden with honor and dignity. No. I'm actually really curious about this because Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is my favorite Star Trek movie. So, and if this is the only mention of Khan in TNG, I'm actually really curious to see what that mention was. So I'll either cop out and Google it, or I'll actually take a minute, 42 minutes, and rewatch the episode. We'll see.
Don't torture yourself. Just Google it. I'm sure the scene is out there on YouTube or TikTok. Well, those are some fun trivia points on an episode that you don't like, and an episode that I guess I kind of mostly like. I do find the character grating, but overall, I have good memories of this episode, and I enjoyed watching it this time just as much as I have enjoyed any other times.
Excellent. And I definitely enjoyed talking with you about it, if not watching it. I enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, great show. Now it's time for Collector's Card Roulette. This is a segment where either Steven or I pull out a packet of cards. These ones in particular are from 1993. These are the Skybox Master Series Star Trek Edition original art compositions from the Final Frontier. Looks like there are 6 trading cards per pack and 90 in the whole set. Did you collect these cards in the 90s? Because I didn't. I think I bought all of these in a box at Star Trek Las Vegas, maybe. I don't really remember. Actually, I think I bought them on eBay. In any case, the segment is Steven and I pull a random card, not having seen it before. And being that it is from the TNG era, but could include original series, could include Deep Space Nine, we're just going to talk about whatever we pull out of the card pack. And if it's non-TNG, see how it connects to TNG. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
I've got a pack here, and the card is Jellyfish. Card title is Space Anemone, and I will go ahead and read the back. It is number 68 in this set. There's a quote that says, "Since these aliens don't communicate verbally, I had only their image to convey their tenderness." Do you remember who said that, Steven?
I do not.
I don't either. Troy, maybe?
Perhaps.
I don't know. The card itself says, "The newly liberated anemone-like creatures in Encounter at Farpoint are truly alien. Possessing no form of communication we can decipher, we nevertheless recognize them as intelligent, benevolent beings whose universe we share. They are the epitome of the new life and new civilizations which the USS Enterprise was commissioned to seek out, and a touching reminder of the sanctity of life forms which the Prime Directive was intended to protect." Our card is directly from TNG. So, what are your thoughts on this, Steven? Any connections to other series or any particular memories?
Well, I think that I appreciate that we have a card that actually is TNG, so that makes this a little bit more straightforward. I think that for 1987, for the first episode of a new Star Trek series, it was a really fascinating story. The sort of clues we get when they're talking to, the administrator is talking to someone, but we don't know whom, and is it an enemy? Is it, who is it? Who is this, right? And the end of it being this amazing creature that we've never seen before, and a beautiful reminder at the end of the first episode of a new series of what Star Trek is, what it's about, what their mission is for. I think it was a really great way to introduce a new series.
Yeah, it definitely foreshadows what the series would continue to do that the original series did, which is speak on certain kinds of ethical problems. This one in particular, the abuse of another life form simply because that species had power to control it or to lock it down and make it do whatever they wanted it to do, whether it was, build a city or create apples out of thin air, as Riker asked. It was a good way to start the show. And I really wanted, and maybe in my headcanon it is this, but in season 3 of Picard, when they were in that nebula that ended up being the birthing ground for these sort of like almost jellyfish looking creatures. They didn't look exactly like these ones, but in my brain, I really wanted them to be these creatures. We never get a name of what they are. I mean, they're just discovered in season 3 of Picard. So it would seem that they didn't realize that they were this original jellyfish creature from Encounter at Farpoint. But I really wanted them to be. And until somebody tells me they're not, I'll argue that they are.
I honestly made the same connection, same comparison. I thought these are very similar in appearance, in effect, to the Encounter, the being from Encounter at Farpoint. So I think it would be great if somewhere, somehow, someone connects those officially, canonically, right? Because they have to come from somewhere. And what a great full circle from the first episode
The
to the
very
last
beginning.
season.
Yeah.
So I think that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's true for me.
Great. Yeah, I think that's all we.
That's
I mean,
good.
I'm not sure. It's the first episode of TNG, so definitely easy to connect. I'm not sure I have anything else to say about the space anemones.
Yeah. I don't either. I mean, we see him again in Lower Decks, right? In the opening credits. But I don't really need to go there.
Incoming transmission.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristen. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey and Mitch, self-proclaimed gamers who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for the Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through Star Trek Cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into beta canon with Peter, host of the Trek Book Club on Twitter and Bluesky, and his companion Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey and MC. If you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Calvin and Amy, with new 8-week seasons in the spring and fall. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with an LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea-Bev. And for our patron members, we have the Hive Mind with script readings and roundtable discussion, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. You can keep up with all of these shows by following the network at BQN Podcasts on Instagram and Bluesky. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join us on our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, BQN Podcasts on Bluesky, or our Discord server to continue our discussion there. Links can be found in the show notes.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Here on BQN Podcasts, you will never hear a commercial on one of our shows. And if you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, commercial-free, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Let's Fly reaction show, script readings, and other perks. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a star rating and a written review. That helps others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producers, Jim McMahon and Davey Willett, and a special thanks to Mark White for our show artwork. We are so grateful for your support. And to all of our listeners, we send out a heartfelt thanks.
Thank you for beaming aboard the Galaxy class, and until next time, make now always the most precious time.
And if we're going to be damned, let's be damned for what we really are.
Engage.
Hailing frequencies closed.